What's up, everybody? Welcome to our very first pre-recorded podcast. I want to say here at the top of the show a couple things about exactly what we're doing before we get into today's main topic, which is going to be talking about thrifting in Vegas, because we just shot an entire video spending a whole week in Vegas thrifting, and we learned a lot that we want to talk about that doesn't really fit into our weekly video, into the format that we're currently shooting. Normally, we're daily video posters, so normally you would have 4 or 5 videos in each city that we go to and a lot more time to talk. But now that we've changed our format, we need this podcast more than ever to have discussions, wouldn't you say?
I agree. I mean, there's not a lot of time to fit in the chit-chat, so it's a good time to do it.
So I want to say about this podcast and our live shows and stuff before we get started. I know a lot of you guys, since we switched from our daily videos now to our weekly videos, we've had so many questions about, well, what happened to the live show? Where'd the live show go? Well, it's hard to get into, and we're still going to be doing the live show, but I'll explain how in just a second. But there's just YouTube is such a complicated beast when it comes to posting videos, and the algorithm. You always hear people talk about YouTube's algorithm, and it's a real thing, and it's a what would you use to describe it? What word? It's a touchy, sensitive thing.
Fickle.
It's a very fickle thing. So right now, as we transition into these weekly videos, it's become clear that we don't need to post anything on our channel except our weekly video for a little while. So our live shows are going to be here on this channel. We're going to have this whole channel to do live shows, pre-recorded podcasts, and maybe even some eventually like reaction videos or something fun that we couldn't do somewhere else. So I think right now the plan is you guys are going to get a pre-recorded podcast 3 times a week, and then 3 times a month. 3 times a week would be wild. We just have to be a podcast channel at that point. But we're going to do 3 pre-recorded shows, not unlike this, a month. And then once a month, probably at the end of every month, we will do, or beginning of every month, I'm not sure which, we'll do a live show. Or we might even just get to where it's just 3 pre-recorded live show. So it's not always going to line up on a schedule that if we do it that way. But something like this, we're still in the midst of figuring it out. So, I don't know. Just kind of hang tight and give us a little bit of headroom, leadway to figure out what we're doing here, and our live shows will come back on this channel. But for now, the way that it's going to be, I think, is we'll do our weekly vlog. So, like, this week, the video is us in Vegas. So, hopefully, by the time you click on this, you'll have watched that video. And if you're watching this one first, it's not going to be any spoilers. But if you watch this, honestly, it'll make our weekly video make more sense. Or vice versa. It'll work either way, I think. But I think for now, we'll do our weekly video, and then we'll do our podcast talking about the rest of it. It'll kind of be what these pre-recorded shows will be for a while until we get our footing. But that being said, comment below if you'd like us to do this. I think maybe next week, unless we have way too much to say about whatever next week's video is, we can just do a whole podcast talking about the experience of going from 2 years of daily videos now to weekly videos.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a crazy adjustment, so we got a lot to say about it.
A ton. And, there's not a lot of YouTubers that can say that. They posted for years daily. I mean, there are some, and there are some people with some impressive track. I think there was a guy that vlogged for almost every day for 10 years. I'm sure he missed a couple in there, but, like, he was a daily vlogger for 10 years. there's people on YouTube like that. And of course, we got nowhere near that, but we got far enough in that I certainly can sit here now and have I feel like if Casey Neistat, someone who's probably going to be considered, if he isn't already, the godfather of daily vlogging, he's definitely the one that did it the biggest and loudest. I've listened to him on other podcasts and stuff talk about his daily posting and the things he went through, and there's definitely some things he had to say that were way bigger in scope than us that I couldn't imagine, but there was plenty of things he had to say that I knew for a fact when I would listen to him. I was one of the very few people on earth that could understand it.
Yeah.
The daily grind of shooting and posting and stuff. So we'll maybe expect next week's episode to be exactly about that. If next week's not the live show. Don't know how that's going to go exactly, but I don't know. Other than that, I think we'll also be doing some interviews with other people and having other people on the show, or some episodes will randomly be us Skyping someone else. There's a lot we can do with these pre-tape shows that the intensity of doing our live shows that we were doing every week can't do. Plus, I don't know how you feel about this, but the concept of just doing one live show a month and looking forward to it, talking about it coming up in our daily videos or on these podcasts sounds like a lot of fun because it's a lot more time to prep. And
yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of times the live show being every single week, there was a scramble to try to figure out what to do.
Yeah. Sunday came around and it was like, what are we going to do? And that's kind of the thing. I wanted those live shows to be, they turned into just being a Q&A.
Yeah.
You know, that's all, because what else are you going to do? Now, I think with a month to prep for each one, we can have a game, or I've got this Furby song that I wrote. And I'd love to go live and sing the Furby song and have my stage lights that I've installed in here just start flying, smoke machines or whatever. Like, I feel like that'd be dope. But it's like, you know, getting all that ready and all the audio set, it's a headache. So I think that'll be doable on a one live show per month basis. So if you like the sound of any of that, make sure you're subscribed to this channel. Tell your grandmother to subscribe to this channel. And once this channel's closer to 1,000 subs, and I know we're gonna have, you know, the same level ish of viewers per live show that we had previous. Because here's the problem, with doing live shows on YouTube. And this applies to our gaming channels, right? It's so depressing. If I go live on our Minecraft channel, 5 or 6 of you guys will watch because there's just a few hundred subscribers on it. That's fine. Small channel. It's just where it's at. But we have, you know, Rubber Duck Yellow, where we do card game stuff and some other video game stuff. I go live on there. You know, I've had 100 people watch live on that 2,000 sub channel, but nothing compares to if we go live on our main channel, on the Tendo channel. You know, it can be upwards of 300 or 400 sometimes at once. So, you know, it's going to be a little bit hard here now because, like, it's going to take us posting a few of these episodes and doing a few live shows on this channel before anyone before the channel's big enough where there's going to be the same audience we had on our other channel. But
yeah,
it's going to be worth working towards that, I think, just to, you know, so our main channel can stay cleaner and stuff. But do you have anything else to add to that? Because we've got a lot to talk about with Vegas.
I think we'll save some more of it for next week's podcast.
Yeah.
But
well, we definitely can, because there's a lot to say about the daily posting and where we're at and what we're going to do with it. So we'll save that for next week. Now let's talk a little bit about Vegas. I just exploded a rubber band.
I saw that.
If you're not watching and you're just listening, that might have been a funny noise, but I'm sitting here nervously playing with rubber bands. All right, so Vegas, okay? This is our, like, 3rd or 4th time going to Vegas.
Has it been 4 times already?
Well,
I feel like
ever.
Yeah.
It's like our 4th or 5th time, I think. Because when we first met, we started traveling together instantly. New York, California. But on the way to California the first time, we stopped at Vegas.
Right.
So that's number 1.
Which is the first time either of us had been to Vegas, right?
Right. Correct. And then we had to have went again before we came here, right? Or no? Am I making that up?
I don't remember.
See,
See, I feel like there was a time when you went back to Kentucky to go get a friend of ours to help him move to California. I think you two stopped there, but I wasn't with you that time.
Okay, so anytime I travel like that anyways, I just rewrite my memory to have you there anyways. So that's probably number 2 for me. And then we moved here, and I guess it's just 2 times since we've been here. That doesn't make sense. I feel like, when did we go to the bins there on our own?
Well, we went and we stayed at the Luxor.
On our own?
Yeah, and then we went with Monique and Ivan and stayed at the Excalibur.
And then this trip.
And then this Excalibur stay.
We basically live in Vegas now is what we're getting at. Well, so that first time we went together post-moving here, and we stayed at the Luxor and we went to the bins there, we instantly realized there was something pretty special about the bins there.
Yeah.
And if you've stumbled across this video and somehow you just listen to us ramble on about posting YouTube videos for 10, 15 minutes, what are we at? We're only at, what does that say, 9 minutes, 10 minutes, and you're still watching, well, thank you. But if you have no idea what's going on, we have a thrifting channel, and we just do a tremendous amount of thrifting. I don't know anyone that does quite as much thrifting as we do. At least, that's probably not true. I think people I think Rick, Retro Rick, goes to the thrift store just as much as we do. But he's very good at just showing the good stuff, and we because of our daily posting and having to meet that kind of deadline, we have so much more included everything: the good, the bad, the ugly.
Right.
Which there's positive and negatives too. And again, when we do the future podcast about all that, I have way more to say about it. But we thrift so much. I mean, there have been weeks where we have went to probably upwards of 80, 90, 100 thrift stores, especially when we travel.
Yeah, especially when we travel. 'Cause we hit just on the way out of town, we hit every single one off the highway that is reasonably close.
That can be like 20. And we were like, okay, we're leaving to travel. And our first travel video, we won't really have gotten 100 miles away from town before we actually stop and sleep sometimes, just because that's just how we are. That's what we do. But that being said, if you're watching and you don't know what's going on, you just need to know that we go to a lot of thrift stores, and our favorite thrift stores to go to, of course, are Goodwill bins. And the Goodwill bins, the Goodwill outlet, the Goodwill clearance center in Vegas, whatever you want to call it, it goes by a lot of names, trust me. When we went there the first time, we were like, oh, this is good.
Yeah. I mean, our first impression walking in, we're pretty lucky being in Phoenix, because Phoenix has one of the larger Goodwill bins that we've ever been to.
For sure.
So anytime we walk into any other cities, it's always like, okay, it is smaller. Mm-hmm. So manage expectations, figure out it's going to be okay. But it was a little bit on a different level.
It was small too. Mm-hmm. If you've ever been to one of the Goodwill bins in New Mexico, you're going to know what we're talking about small bins. It's like the size of our game room here. Yeah. It's just not big. And this honestly isn't a lot bigger.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably double the size of the one in Albuquerque.
I don't even think it's that.
Yeah.
If you consider the floor space in the Vegas bins that the bins sit on, mm-hmm. right? Because in Albuquerque, right, it's just like bin, wall, mm-hmm. and that's it.
Yeah.
Here, there's a little bit more space, but I feel like it's about as many bins. But the key that makes this place magic, and I've never seen this at a Goodwill bins, and I've been to about 15 of them across the country, maybe even 20. Constant rotations.
Yeah, just those workers in there are busting a move.
I mean, and now mind you, we've been there together 3 or 4 times now, or 3 or 4 different trips every day, multiple trips every vacation, whatever. We've been there a bunch. And every time we're there, there's not a moment that the people moving old bins out and new bins in stop.
Right.
And this is really special, because if you've watched our channel at all and seen what the Goodwill bins is about, or if you've ever been to the Goodwill bins yourself, you're going to know what we mean. Rotation just means people moving stuff in and out, restocking this particular kind of Goodwill. And they don't stop.
They don't. I mean, the only one that I've seen that's kind of compared to it was whenever we were in St. Louis. But even then,
that was fast.
It was fast, but they would take a break in between each one. They'd give you 10 minutes to shop it before they start moving out the next row.
Or maybe even more than 10 minutes, but even 30 minutes or so seemed fast to us, because our home Goodwill bins in Phoenix, it's just different. But it's huge though, right? So it's so big. There's there are separate rooms that are bigger than most Goodwill bins that you'll go to at our bins. So they, for the longest time here in Phoenix where we live, the Goodwill bins would close half the store, you get to shop the other half, and they would meander and kind of change out the other room, and eventually when they opened up, you just had the whole other half of the store to go to.
Right.
So it kept you on your feet, and you could reasonably spend enough time at each side that by the time the other one was open, it would be better. Now, huge caveat, COVID.
Right.
COVID comes, and now our Goodwill bins closes the whole store, makes you wait an hour, and then opens the whole store. And this is pretty much an attempt to appease COVID restriction guidelines, social distancing, etc. So it's all understandable. I get it. I don't know, and maybe someone watching knows, can comment below and let the rest of us know. I don't know what and if, where, what Vegas bins might have done at one point or another for COVID. I'm sure they did similar things, but certainly by the time we went, they had went back in the other direction. And it's just great to go back to the bins, and 2 things for me, and you can definitely speak to what you like the most about it, but instantly going back to a bins that operates more along pre-COVID guidelines. The 2 things that stand out to me is, man, it's nice not to have to stand around. I am not a stander arounder. And anyone who knows me personally knows this. So just to be able to keep moving, And people look at me like I'm crazy because I guess I look like I'm a little frantic when I do it because even now, like at the Vegas bins, people will shop one side quickly and then go get in line for the next rotation.
Right.
I would prefer... I need to finish my former thought. I'm going to get too far ahead of here. But the second thing I love is that we can dig in bins together.
Right.
Because up until very recently here at our home bins, we still couldn't because of COVID. I miss you and I being able to tear up bins. Maybe we can talk about that in a second, so don't forget that. But what I was trying to say is at the Goodwill bins now, and this was always a thing in any bins I've been to, people rush, dig, and then go get in line for the next rotation. I would rather dig for a whole rotation and find the most minuscule things in bins and then get at the end of the line for new rotation.
Yeah.
This is my preferred method of shopping the Goodwill bins.
And is that just because you don't want to have to stand around, or is it because you find benefit in that?
Both. And I think it's way more, let's be honest. I just can't stand around because I've always been this way. Hyperactive and stuff. So I just can't do it. I can't. The moment I go stand there, unless there's like someone to talk to or something to fidget with, I just can't do it.
Right.
So it's definitely mostly that. But the other part is I do find huge benefit. I mean, some of my best stuff. Let me grab something off screen. This right here is my Pokemon Game Boy. I found this in a Goodwill bins. Our Goodwill bins here in Phoenix at the end of a rotation at the bottom of a bin that just no one cared to look at. It's like shopping a regular Goodwill, right? If you just run in and run out real quick because you don't have a lot of time, it's going to be fine. You're going to find whatever. But it's usually after the third trip around a Goodwill because you're not in a hurry that you find the hidden thing that you just can't imagine. Yeah. And for me, I always find my best stuff that way.
Yeah. I mean, for me, a benefit in picking around until the beginning of the next rotation is that usually while people are standing in that line waiting for the next rotation, they're going through their stuff
and throwing stuff back.
And especially with the clothes people will grab something, go, oh, okay, this is good, and then decide, well, actually or notice the zipper's broken or something. Right. And I'll be the one to go and pick that stuff up, and I'll be like, oh, that is a fixable rip, or oh, I can definitely sell this, or something that somebody else didn't want.
And it's not even always broken stuff. It's just, people that are getting into thrifting usually just assume it's a I don't want to say a zero-sum game, but it's a like get everything you can, list everything you can. So many people fall into this trap that like this. You'll watch a lot of eBay instructional videos that will tell you outright or suggest that like the path forward is tons of listings.
Yeah.
Just hoard up your garage, and if you have enough stuff listed, eventually you'll get to where enough stuff sells every day. And that certainly is one strategy. Mm-hmm. Though I think our strategy is just more so just like hyper quality stuff. We pass up a lot of stuff sometimes that people just lose their minds over.
Right.
Because they see such extreme value in it because of a lot of reasons that we don't have to get into, but we have such unlimited access to stuff, having such good Goodwill bins and Goodwills here that like $25-$50 Guitar Hero guitars for us aren't worth the trouble of even messing with, at least for eBay and shipping. Though we've begun to have better luck with that kind of thing, putting them in our antique mall, so we've picked up a few. But like we don't when we shop at a Goodwill bins, we're more so just looking to like take something home for that day to get that day's work done to fill that antique mall, right?
Yeah. I mean, especially with me, I mostly look for the clothes. So I definitely look for things that I can get listed and get like out the door as soon as possible, because I mean, having a bunch of stuff here at home to just like hoard and hold on to for a really long time is not like my favorite thing in the world. So it's just definitely looking for those quick movers. And a lot of times those movers are things that I want, but other people don't do well with or something, which is where that end of rotation grab for me sometimes is really good. Because I focus mostly on vintage denim.
Right.
And my curated selection of vintage denim has created a customer base that is looking for that sort of thing. So it's just something that I've got an eye for it, and not everybody can move those same items.
Right.
So.
And so end of rotation stuff, when people are throwing stuff back, it's such a good time at the Goodwill bins to be moving around. And I think because people fall into, I referred to it as a trap when I said people think it's just get everything that's reasonably good. I tend to find that people that shop at the Goodwill bins that are what we call regulars, which we are at our own Goodwill bins, but you can always tell this when you go out of town. It's the same kinds of people, that are Goodwill bins regulars. There's always the CD guy, the vinyl guy, the books people, the T-shirt bros. They're always there, and that's cool. It's a familiar ecosystem to us. But I feel like people that are regulars the most, it always just becomes, I got to get in first to have the best chance to get the best thing next round. And that's beneficial if you're at a Goodwill bins where you can tell what's coming out. A long time ago, our Goodwill bins, you could stand right by the door where they rolled stuff out. And you could look at every bin and think, oh, I think maybe I saw this sporting good item or whatever I want to find in that bin. I'm going to run straight to that bin. Nowhere near possible to do that now, because not only are you not allowed anywhere near where they're bringing the bins out, but also they were last time we were at our home bins, assigning bins.
Yeah, and on top of that, this was a recent change, but I believe they're still doing it, is they put blankets over all of the bins so that literally no one is allowed to see it until it's time to go.
And we've seen this at a lot of other Goodwill bins. I can't remember one off the top of my head, but we've traveled a couple places that have...
I think Tucson does it too. I think that was the first time I saw that.
They certainly did do it. It's always hard to say. If you hear us saying something about your Goodwill bins, it's not true. Well, it's because we haven't been there in 6 months. So, no, you're right. I remember that there, and I'm sure some other places have done it. But that was the other thing about the Vegas Goodwill bins that just made me happy. All that constant rotation. Like a lot of Goodwill bins, they had written rules and posted rules and unwritten rules that were just kind of hard to understand. And we always tell people when you're going to the Goodwill bins, just watch everyone else for a while before you get into it. I will say, I'll admit I got in trouble once or twice while I was there. Not serious trouble. They were very polite to me. There was one lady working there who she was like, hey... Any Goodwill bins you go to, there's some, what you've heard us already discuss, a couple different ways things can be divided. The Goodwill bins in Vegas doesn't really have sections that they restock and don't. They just, they do, but it's not like half the store, that part of the store. This is just like this row of bins and then that row of bins. And I found myself, because of this bad habit of just constantly moving, I found myself twice that I got caught. And the other times I wasn't really inherently doing anything wrong. I should have been minding my own business and staying away. What they'll do is, like, there's a row, 2 rows of 4 bins, so 8 bins right there, and they'll start wheeling those out, and you're still allowed to dig into them. They probably would prefer you didn't. It's not exactly certain how it works, but, like, there's no huge problem if you go to that bin and grab something that you just change your mind on or throw something back in it when they're taking them out. But the moment they bring a new bin back in, you better stay away. Yeah. And this makes sense for safety reasons. They don't want you to get ran over. This all makes sense, but also you're not allowed to dig in those items. Everyone gets the same chance to get in line and be the first to those bins.
Right.
But I'll find myself not realizing where they're at in rotation and getting too close to those bins and looking in. And I remember one time I was there and the lady's like, she thought I was reaching in to grab something. And I honestly don't know if I was or not. And she's like, you're fine, honey. I just thought maybe you were about to reach in there. You're more than welcome to walk by it. And I was like, I'll be honest with you, I'm zoned out. I don't know what I was about to do. So, it's refreshing to not have to worry too much about waiting around, but it is also, like, hard to get used to the old way.
Well, something else I noticed that they would do is, with their quick rotations, they were doing both things at once. They had a team of people wheeling some rows out while another team was wheeling stuff in. So I got confused a couple of times
with what was going out,
which one was going out, which one was going in. So I just was like, you know what, I'm just gonna go on the other side of the ring.
Well, if in doubt, just stand still and get out of their way.
Yeah.
And it was clear that the regulars there knew what was going on and they were well practiced. But I felt generally out of practice going to. I mean, now mind you, if again you're either watching this and don't know what's going on, or you're watching this and haven't watched our main channel video, we're kind of out of practice with the bins.
A little bit.
Which it's just very easy. Almost anything we're going to talk about today to turn this into a conversation about our transition from daily posts to weekly videos now, and this is kind of a huge part of it. But we, I'm trying to think of how to say this. We kind of came to the realization, and a lot of things were moving around in our lives anyways all at once, to where we knew it was time to stop posting our daily videos, and we just kind of took a break from almost everything for a lot of reasons. Hannah's custom jeans that she makes. I keep seeing myself in my camera, and I'm doing this I look like I'm doing hand magic. Keep your hands still. See what I mean about staying still? My legs bumping under the table.
I know.
I'm not nervous about nothing. I'm just a crazy person.
I'm just too nervous about accidentally whipping my hand up, pulling this cord, or hitting my microphone.
This is all new to us, right? If you've watched any of our podcasts previous, they've been live, and I've been standing up, walking in circles because I'm a crazy person. This is new, but I'm enjoying this. This is fine. Are you fine?
It's good. I'm just not moving my hands.
Now, what the heck were we talking about? The bins.
Transitioning into
we haven't been to the bins in like 2 months or so. It might be longer. I don't know.
I think we're going on 3.
Okay. Well, prior to the trip, we were probably going on 3. So we're kind of out of the loop on the bins. So it was a little bit difficult going 4 days in a row and trying to get my mindset back in there, especially given that we spent large portions of the day at the bins, right? It's been ages since we have spent more than a couple hours at the bins, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, definitely. I remember looking at you at one point while we were there and saying, we've been here a really long time.
4 or 5 hours.
Don't know if I'm capable of going much longer.
Yeah.
I'm just not trained for that anymore.
Yeah.
That there's already this energy you have to have whenever you're digging through bins because of the speed
so
of
physical.
It and digging and having to worm your way through people. It's
and having to exist so close to people, closer than forget COVID. If COVID ever happened, you're still just let me reach around you and grab this thing.
Bubble space doesn't exist.
No.
So there's already this level of energy you have to exude to be at the bins, but then also being on your feet for 4 or 5 hours.
Yes.
And then also you don't have snacks with you. You don't have that little burst of energy to be able to just refuel and keep going. But
for sure,
I did find myself getting a little bit tuckered out. I was digging a little slower. I was walking a little slower. I was pushing my cart a little lackadaisically. It's just, it was fun. I would have loved to continue going. I don't know about you, but for me, going to the Goodwill bins is my favorite form of thrifting. So I really, really love whenever we're there. I have a lot of fun, and it's a good time for me. So being able to be there for an entire week would be really fun for me. But
I don't mean to change the subject because I do want to finish that thought, but we both kind of grew up with various amounts of yard selling, and that was something we liked. But for whatever reason, I think I know the reason. I think it's Goodwill bins. When we moved here and tried yard sales, we were like, oh, this is good. This is a great place to go yard selling. But we both kind of came to this conclusion that it wasn't for us. We weren't really yard sale people anymore, which was kind of tough because we've enjoyed yard selling together prior to this channel. And also, when you quit your full-time job to jump into what we're doing now, what was it you told me the thing you were most excited for was?
I wanted to go to yard sales and estate sales because I worked every single Saturday.
Yeah.
That was our biggest day, and it just no chance you're getting off on a Saturday.
Right, 100%.
And so it was yes, I finally can go yard selling, and it was we just never really did it.
Well, we went to a few right when you quit, and we just immediately were. Even though they were good, we went to some estate sales. You bought some dishes if you've been watching our channel for a while, right at the beginning of Hannah's doing dishes on this channel real heavy. It was estate sales we did quite a few. But it just very quickly, we kind of looked at each other and went, wouldn't you rather be at the Goodwill bins? And we were yes, 100%. So another thought I had, you have to understand, we were a tiny channel before COVID. 2,000 subs, maybe right at the time it hit, 2 or 3. Someone might correct me if you know better. I'm not so good with the numbers. But COVID hit, and we trickled up a little during COVID. A lot of people found us during COVID, but it's important to note that a lot of them found our thrifting and yard selling content and stuff, and they stuck around and hung out with us through COVID, though most of our videos were literally us sitting here in this room, because what else are we going to do? But when we were let out of the cage back into the thrifting wild, we blew up. We went from our 3,000, probably at that time 4,000, up to closer to where we are, 8, 9, 10,000 during that time period, because a couple things. There was like waves. First of all, the moment we were able to go back out thrifting, our thrift finds were so insane, because all through COVID, I don't know how it was where you guys are, but our thrift stores stayed open for donations, even though they were closed. So everyone was cleaning their house, donating. So we just had this renaissance, if you will, of thrifting really good stuff, great cover photos, thumbnails, and that was one great wave. It was good, but then it took a little longer than the bins were open, and it was the same thing. We had just this fire time at the bins for a couple months that helped us blow up even more. So I don't know why I tell you all that, other than to just kind of give you an explanation of why, like, maybe if you want to know why we feel a little bit authoritative about the bins, it's because we've had this immense history with it. But it's also important to note all that, and I think it might help you understand how, like, back into the bins mentality I feel like being right now.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit difficult because our home Goodwill bins here now is, I don't know where they're at. Every time we go back, the rules are easing or restricting a little bit more, and it's a weird time for everybody. This is not a criticism, you know. They're trying to figure their thing out. But what do we do? Do we just go back to Vegas this week? Like, are you ready to go? Like, I'm ready to go back, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty crazy. Well, one thing I really wanted to get into on this is the types of shoppers that were there. I don't know.
At the bins?
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about that, and maybe that'll be a good final point on it, because I also want to talk about the Savers and the Goodwills in Vegas, because there's a lot to say.
Well, the regular shoppers that were there, I feel like every single bins has, like you already mentioned, their type of people that are searching for certain things. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I struggle with a lot at our home bins is that I have a lot of competition for the clothes. There's
tons.
Like, their capacity is 125. I would say at least 100 of them are clothes people.
That's fair, yeah.
And it just gets insane for me to be able to even find just one thing that's decent, because I have to fight my way through so many people, plus the COVID restrictions, plus the one person per bin. It goes on.
Right.
But at the Vegas bins, there were clothing people there. But I would say if there were 100 people in that building, probably 50 of them were clothes people. So
half or a little less.
Yeah, it was way easier for me to be able to find things, especially because the clothes people that were there weren't necessarily looking for what I was looking for.
Right, which became really clear. I mean, again, no worries if you haven't seen the video yet, but go watch it after this or go watch it tomorrow. You brought home so much.
I did, and it was long overdue.
Yeah.
It was something that I definitely needed to have a restock.
For sure.
Everybody jokes about their death pile being insane and like so difficult to get through, and I was like, I wish I had a death pile right now.
For sure.
Need something. But it was crazy because I would say there was probably like 10 or 15 or so people that just searched for t-shirts, and then you had your like 20 or so people that were doing Poshmark stuff. Right. And then there were 1 or 2 people that were picking up jeans, but it was all like maybe the newer stuff, or I have too many Levi's, I don't need these, and I was just like grabbing Levi's,
I'll take them.
all of them. And a woman even came up to me, she's like, I saw you were grabbing Levi's, do you want these? I was like, yes please, thank you.
Right, which brings up another important point. People there were awesome.
They were very nice. I had no issues with anybody. Was able to chat with a few people and just kind of get to know them a little bit. I mean, it's all superficial because we were going to be there for 3 days. But it was just, hey, good to meet you. Nice to see a shopper.
Any Goodwill bins you're at, they're gonna know pretty quick if you're new, and then they're gonna know even quicker if you know what you're doing or not. And I don't know. I feel like we at least don't walk in there and act like Yeah, save for the one or two times I was like, oh, I'm somewhere I shouldn't be. We don't walk in there and act clueless. Plus, with Goodwill bins now, it's hard for us to go to Goodwill bins without people knowing who we are. So that kind of happens too. You walk in and the door opens and someone's like, hey, yo, Tendo! But people were really nice to us even without knowing who we are, that's good because you can go to some bins and the atmosphere created there is not so friendly. But like, I can make a comparison here. Now this is just a one-off comparison. I don't think you should take this too seriously as like an overarching comparison. But like the downtown Goodwill bins in St. Louis, I remember very distinctly there being a rotation, and it was midway through, so the stakes weren't so high. There wasn't so much rushing. And I realized on the bottom of this bin there was just an infinite number of sports cards, and what drew me to it was Digimon cards. It's just out of focus back here, but I got a shelf with Digimon stuff on it. I'd say I'm at about half of the whole original run of Digimon cards. Very passionate about finding the rest of them, but also not in a hurry because I find them in handfuls of the bins, and some of you awesome people have sent some to me in mail time. I was real excited because I grabbed a couple hollows, and I wasn't even being frantic. I was just like, and this woman comes up and all but dives in front of me and just give them to, and I'm trying to even in that moment be polite, be like, oh yeah, which ones do you want? I'm just trying to get these Digimon, because that in my mind I was like, diffuse the situation. I really want the Digimon. I'd even give up the Pokemon that are in there for the Digimon because I can kind of tell they're not that great. And she just doesn't respond. She's just shoveling them into her cart. And then we weren't there that long that day, but I felt pretty certain she was going to throw them back.
Yeah, because I mean, you felt like she wasn't somebody that actually wanted them. She was just there like, oh, someone else wants this.
I've heard these are valuable.
Yeah.
And there was nothing of value in there. And so, but that's a huge contrast because this bins, I go in there and I pretty quickly at the beginning of a rotation, so much higher stakes. And mind you, even in this setting, the ratio of people to bins was way lower. Right. So in that first instance, there was a bin for just 3 bins for everyone. Right. Yeah. This one, there was like 4 people per bin. Right. But I got to this bin very quickly on this trip and realized it was full of sports cards. I mean, there was junk on top, but tons of sports cards inside. And you have to be very careful in these bin settings because if you start going too ham, it draws attention. So I'm just kind of like. And then I look over, and of course, there's ladies on either side of me picking up the cards. And I'm like, well, it's fine. I'm just going to get my share.
It happens. It's cool.
I just wanted some sports cards for our antiques mall. I put off getting into things sometimes a long time. Like, we did this channel for a year and a half before I bought a single board game. Right. I bought Harry Potter board games because I had a lot of Harry Potter stuff at one antique mall. And that was kind of the beginning of the rabbit hole to reselling. I ease into things like that, and that's how I like to do it. So it's just time for sports cards. It's just finally time. It's here. So I'm putting my handfuls in. I'm just like, there's enough for everybody. But all of a sudden, they're both tossing the cards in my bags. And I'm like, thank you so much. They're like, oh yeah, I don't see nothing this round. I'll help you. And this lady on my left stood there for a good 8 to 10 minutes, just shoveling cards into my bag. And this is like the nicest anyone's ever been at a bins, because not only did she like, oh, you could. It wasn't a moment where she wanted and could have it, and I still don't like. It was the beginning of a rotation, and she wasn't running around looking for her own stuff. She was standing there helping me. Yeah. And I was just like, you rock so much. And then the other person on my right helped me for a little while too, though she didn't help me for quite as long. And I'd say I got 90% of what was in that bin sports cards wise before someone finally ran up and started just shoveling their own in. And honestly, I had a whole Walmart bag full, those Walmart cloth bags, and he might have got he had a little basket like this. I still would have liked to have seen what was in what he got, but it was good. It was just like I can't rave about how nice and kind people were there. And that story was pretty much across the board our whole time there. I mean, the number of times someone came up to you and was like, oh, sorry, you're getting jeans. Here's like 6 pairs of shorts. For sure. And I feel like everybody was really respectful of each other. I didn't feel like I was being pushed, save for one. Oh, there's always situation.
I don't know what it is. It's this way at our bins too. The second people bring out shoes.
Oh, well, this is
game
universal.
over.
Bins to bins. This is universal.
Like, people go into like wild Serengeti mode. Like, I don't know what it is about shoes, but they are just like animals. And so they brought out never more than like 4 shoe bins.
Yeah.
And they were the big like boat tables full of shoes.
That's definitely what we should call it from now on. Boats.
And like they bring out clothes, they bring out the miscellaneous stuff, and there is that like mad dash, but they're always just like, oh yeah, you can get into this spot. I'm done. Like, it's respectful, moving at a reasonable pace. But the shoe people, it's like, get out of my way. These are mine. Like, they were just
and again, this is
animals.
This is every bins we've ever been to that does shoes.
Yeah, and even at our bins, they won't bring out very many shoes because they've kind of like phased that out a little bit. I guess I'm not really sure why, but
we could only guess. It's probably one part exactly what we're talking about,
probably,
and then another part, sometimes the Goodwill bins, region to region, strike deals where they sell the bulk of one thing to a buyer.
Totally. And so sometimes they'll come out with a shoe bin, and someone will completely hoard it. They will either take all of it and throw it in their cart so that they can go through it themselves later. They will have their friend, their brother, their cousin, their sister, their uncle, all just like
attack one
around
table.
it, so you can't get in. Like, there's this different strategies to it, and it's always like this, and it's super frustrating. But this one, it was 4 bins, pretty tightly compacted, and you had to like weasel your way through
politely,
and then like grab, and then like get shoved, and it was insane.
I noticed some shoe strats that I'd never seen before, and they seem obvious once you hear them, but I noticed a couple of the what did I call them earlier, the shirt bros,
the t-shirt bros,
t-shirt dudes. I noticed one of them run to the shoe bins and like very quickly grab a pair of Adidas and a pair of Nikes, and then he hightailed it out of there.
Yeah.
And I assume, I don't know if you know the shoe strats, comment below, let me know different, but like I assume his strategy was just like, well, if I have the one and no one saw me get it, that like
eventually
they won't grab the other one.
Yeah.
They will, but they'll throw it back. So he waits to the end of the shoe rotation to go back and find the mate if they're there. And it's like, I hope that works for him, I guess. But like, if I were super shoe enthusiastic, I would like reverse engineer that situation and like monitor what he gets, hide them for me, so when he throws them back, you know what I mean? I'm not gonna do that. I'm not into the shoes, and I'm just a toy guy. I'm a toy bro, you know. So I just thought that was funny because I just watched him and I was like, why did he do that? He ran over there and grabbed one Adidas and one Nike and jetted out. I mean, have you seen this strat?
I guess, yeah. And that happened a lot of times. I mean, with the shoes too, with anything at the bins, you find parts to things. You find things broken in half, things just ripped, all kinds of stuff. And so a lot of times you'll go to the shoe section, you'll be like, oh, I love this shoe, I want to find the other one. And it just doesn't exist. Like, it's gone. It's still in the warehouse in the back.
Table.
It's somewhere. Yeah, you'll never find it. And so a lot of times people will grab a shoe, keep it in their cart until the end of the day, and maybe the other one will turn up, maybe not.
We've done that.
Yeah, totally. And it does happen sometimes. You will find the other one, but a lot of times it's because another customer has it, and they're both holding on to the other one, and then a fight breaks out. We're like, that's mine, I got it first. And it's just like, no, it's mine. It's just like, it's
and that doesn't happen a ton, but we've seen in our travels, we've seen it. There's just unfortunately some of these locations that are a little bit rougher than others, but I'm 3 thumbs way up for the Phoenix bins. I'm sorry, the Vegas bins.
Yeah,
and I can't wait to go back. You know what? It's kind of a bummer because the trip, if you've been watching for a little while, we went with our friends Ivan and Monique, and hoping to do that again sometime, sooner rather than later, really. But when we went with them, we got really lucky because our hotel rooms were strictly like $15 a night.
It was crazy.
Parking was free, which is all but unheard of. I guess this is either a seasonal thing or it could be both or just the other. A COVID thing. They're just like, we're not going to mess with this. We don't have the manpower to enforce the gates or whatever they do. So we had the last time we were there, our trip to Vegas was really cheap, and it was still pretty cheap this time. I mean, 4 nights in a hotel room for $140 was pretty good, and we spent all that time filling up our smart card from the bins. So it was good, and I'd like to do it again, but I just feel like, unfortunately, the post-COVID vacationing is going to increase, and it's not going to be worth going back. We need to find some sort of pad to, like, you know, we need to go during the winter and crash in our in our bread truck or something.
Yeah, something.
I don't know. We got to find a way to go back cheaper, because we could definitely spend some more time there.
Yeah, definitely.
But that's that for the bins in Vegas. If you ever get a chance to go, definitely go. Highly recommend it. There's definitely a handful of things that I'm excited to go back just to get more of. Probably the most access I've ever had at a bins to CDs, to music CDs, just an infinite amount of them. It was pretty awesome. But we also shopped at the Goodwills and the Savers there. So I guess we can talk about our experience a little bit at half off Savers on a Monday in Vegas.
Yeah.
Really interesting, because I don't think either of us had any idea what we were getting into.
Oh, for sure.
Because here in Phoenix, we do half off Monday about every other week. And it's a very specific experience. We pretty much feel really comfortable knowing what's going to happen. I can walk. I can walk you through real quick. A quick half off Monday here for us. We get to a now this is all a little bit different because of COVID, but like for the longest time, our strategy has been to get to this one Goodwill bins because it's in a different part of town. Savers. I'm going to confuse all of you. We get to the Savers in one part of town because it opens a little bit earlier, and we can almost, if we hurry up, do 2 Savers at open.
Yeah.
It's not really realistic now because it was kind of a COVID thing, but we were doing that for the longest time here. And then if we really felt like doing something hard, we would go to the other 2 before we quit. We would do 4 Savers, boom, 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 boom. And we almost knew, we'd be getting to this Savers and waiting in line, and then we'd get to this Savers towards the end of the day when maybe if it got too late, we'd be ready to quit rather than go to the other one because it could get bad. We know what to do here at Savers in Phoenix. Would you go get that cat? We've got a cat that's just losing its mind. But in Vegas, we went to the Savers that just and all of it was like, I don't know what's going to happen here. We got to one at what the GPS said was opening, and it turns out they were opening an hour later than that. So we went and got breakfast, and we came back, and we're like, all right, we're here in line. And we waited in line outside the first Savers in Vegas that was infinitely longer than any line we've waited at here in Phoenix. Now, some of you might think this is crazy. I don't know. Comment below. Do you ever have to wait in line outside of your Savers? Because this Savers we started at, we were probably a football field deep, right?
It was probably the longest line I've ever waited in.
Yeah, well, ever for anything. There's a shot in our video where you can see just a horde of people walking in the Savers before us. Whereas here we would get to our Savers and 30 minutes earlier or so, we'd be first through fourth in line every time. So that was interesting. There's about as many Savers, if not the exact same number, in Vegas as there is here in Phoenix. So this is pretty comparable, I feel like. I don't know the population of each city. I know Phoenix is probably a little bigger, but it was an interesting thing. So we did the first Savers, and I don't remember exactly what we got, but I remember thinking today's going to go pretty well. I think I walked right in there and bought like an Inbox 360.
Yeah.
And this is where all the weirdness started, right? Because here in Phoenix, you walk into the Savers Thrift half off day. Where does everybody run?
The lock boxes.
Straight to it.
Yeah.
6 to 10 people are there in a mad dash.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to be a cliche person. I don't want to be the person that runs and trips over people. So I try really hard not to do these things. I try not to be that guy. But it's easy to at our Savers here because like we were getting there at open, and I found out pretty quickly that there's a certain moment where there's a mad dash towards the carts, which you can talk about in a second because that was a thing here. And then people try to run around to go to the lock boxes, but I found there's a path in front of the cash registers, and I could usually get there first without running because everyone's trying to do this mad shuffle. Doesn't always work, but I've gotten a couple PSPs and stuff out of the lockbox with these strategies. But I'll be darned if at these savers everyone didn't go straight for
the carts. It was like
I felt like I thrifted half the store before I saw anybody.
yeah, it was crazy. Like it was just almost like a clog in the front door. Like everybody was just like cart. And
Yeah.
I mean, we don't thrift with a cart very often.
We don't ever unless we have to.
Yeah, I mean, it's a choice that we made as a way to like navigate the thrift store as easily and quickly as possible to get through and move on to our next place.
I've never had a cart be anything but a problem.
Yeah, they're a hassle. They're difficult to like maneuver around people.
They're as wide as the aisles.
Yeah, it's just never. And a lot of times we don't get enough stuff to even need a cart,
Yeah.
and we just carry it up to the front. It's no big deal. So there were a couple times where we had to get a cart. There were still carts available.
Well, there was our last stop where we had to have one because I bought like
Yes.
20 pops and there were no carts. I got a laundry basket from
You
the
did.
basket aisle.
But then we got up to the front, and there was a pile
Of laundry baskets.
boxes. And people just took off shelves and was like, I don't want this
Yeah, there's
because
like-
I just needed something to put my
There was
stuff
10
in.
laundry. If you went to the Savers that day looking for a laundry basket, you were screwed because there weren't enough carts to go around.
No, not at all.
That's funny.
It was really funny. Yeah, and there was a crazy amount of people in the jeans section for me. Like,
You here in Phoenix, tell them how
Yeah.
you'll be the only one there.
Yeah.
It's an afterthought.
especially first thing in the morning, whenever they first open the door, like nobody's searching for men's jeans. I mean, you'll see some women in the jeans aisle for the women's section, but a lot of times they go to the shoes first. They'll go to, the dish section first or something. But this time I was like, oh, it's a different place. I think I'm going to start in the shoes. And so I went through the shoe section. There wasn't a ton of people over there, and I was able to like fly through it really quickly. And then I went over to the men's jeans
Right.
section next, and there were like 6 people in that aisle. There were a lot of jeans in there, but 6 people filled up that aisle, and I couldn't really get
And a lot of them
through.
were grabbing carts
They were
full.
grabbing everything, and so I was like, well, I guess I figured out my mistake. I should have went here first.
Yeah,
But
and that's so very interesting because, if someone were like, listen, I'm coming to Phoenix, I got to get jeans, however I can get them, I'm probably going to be like, well, your best bet's the bins. And honestly,
Yeah.
after this trip, I feel pretty much the same about Vegas.
yeah,
I don't know why my brain can't differentiate Vegas and Phoenix, but it's having a hard time. And so I don't know how I feel though, because like that's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy that they're and it. How did you feel about the other stops? Because we went to what, 3 or 4 savers?
yeah.
Were they all still jeans people?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know each location very well because obviously we don't shop there every week.
Not like
but,
here.
If they were comparable to the first stop, I would say that they had already been ransacked.
Really?
Like it just seemed thinner and less good selection. I was still able to find some good stuff and still able to, pick out at least 1 or 2 pieces that I would have been looking for.
Right.
So it wasn't like completely empty, but yeah, I feel like a lot of people just went ahead and cleared out a vast majority of
Right.
it.
Well, I'm thinking about these moments here at our savers in town where like we've gotten in the door to open, I went straight to the lockbox, scored. Be like, I'm so glad I did this. I'm going home with this Wii U and these games and a PSP, just great hauls. Check our channel. There's a lot of half off savers days where we've nailed it. But then I'm like, okay, what can I do right now to maximize, where might not have people been? And usually like I go to the toys, there's already someone standing there. Wherever I go next, our store has been saturated. But I'm telling you, I hit every section of that store starting with a lockbox. And no one was there. And it wasn't, you might naturally think, well, you're in a hurry and these people are more chill. It wasn't that, just people, the center of the store is clothing. And like you said, I just feel like the difference between here and there is a few more clothing-oriented people at the
Yeah.
savers there.
I feel like people weren't really focused on the gaming stuff
And
that
all that
much.
other stuff. Yeah, because I did Lockbox, got an Inbox 360, ran over to the media section. There was a few dudes there, but no one cared about the games, and there wasn't really great games anyways. Went straight back to the toys, and I spent a hot minute at the toys with no one caring. And there's a lot of good stuff.
Yeah.
So it was just different. And you're going to go to anywhere in the United States and probably find these things to be varying levels of intense or not. And I don't know. I think I hope that'll be a good part of this ongoing podcast that we're going to do. You know, I don't know if I'm going to call it a podcast about thrifting, but we're certainly going to try to talk about in the future on this show where we go and how we feel about it, because there's a lot of people that watch that either do travel and thrift a lot or want to. I know it's a huge topic on our Discord sometimes. Not a huge topic, but it's a reoccurring thing where someone will go on a trip and try the thrift stores there, either because that's what they do or because they've seen us at those thrift stores where we've traveled. So this could be a nice companion to that. I definitely think you should hear some of these things we've said today if you're going to go to Vegas and thrift for the first time. But that being said, I'd love for you guys to comment below and perhaps suggest some places you think we should go next, because I'm kind of looking forward to this. You know, our vlogs on our channel are adventure vlogs. Look at what we found here. You know, I don't think there's going to in the future be any long segments of us just talking about the town and the state of thrifting. I think that'll have to be something resolved for this, because this week's video, I don't know the final run time because I haven't exported it to upload it, but it's like an hour 20, you know, and it's an hour 20 of pure thrifting adrenaline madness.
Yeah.
Which I'm happy about, but you know, I just feel like that video would be so weighed down with another. I mean, we're at 55 minutes right now just talking thrifting. You know, I feel like this would be a good way to move forward, and then that way, you know, as we're moving forward and doing 2 or 3 shows a week about the state of things, and then 1 live show a week about the shenanigans and the fun and the interaction with you guys, I think it'll be fun. But I do want to hear what you guys think, because you were telling me today, where did you say you wanted to go? Possibly not next, but soon.
I thought Santa Fe might be fun. We've never been there before.
Here in New Mexico, but there's no bins there.
There's not, so it made me go, maybe not. But
it's kind of sad, isn't it? That like we're like, let's travel, and they're like, nah, there's not a Goodwill bins, but I hope that illustrates how serious we are.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, this trip wouldn't have been what it was without the bins. I mean, I'm not going to say the crazy thing that I found in this. You'll have to go watch the episode for sure to see the crazy thing. But like, that's the bins, man.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you won't find that in the bag wall at Savers, luckily, some random time, but you're nowhere near as likely.
Yeah, I mean, the bins is a special beast where it's just, you never know what you're going to find.
Well, we all know, whether we think about it too hard or not, if we thrift a lot, we all kind of know that the bins has more stuff, right? But I think what people don't always understand if they don't think about it consciously is that they have more undug through stuff, right? Because your Goodwill is getting stuff donated, and they're getting way more donations than they could ever put in their store, so they ship the leftovers to the bins, and a lot of the times the bins will wheel it straight out. So a lot of times at the bins, you're digging through stuff that no one's touched other than the people that donated. It went into a bin, dumped it in another bin, and rolled out to you. And that's the only way you get your hands on I was about to say it. You know what that I got?
Very specific, unique find that is not something you find every day.
At all. There's no other way to get something like that. There's just not.
I mean, there were some items. I remember there was 2 trash bags of Levi's that were just
literally nothing but Levi's,
and they were in the miscellaneous stuff. It was just like a trash bag. Nobody knew what it was. They threw it in with it, and he ripped it open, and it was just full of Levi's.
Because it was donated that way.
Yeah, and I was like, I'll take this, thanks.
Yeah. Well, I also encourage you guys, if you're watching and you haven't been to a Goodwill bins, this is not sponsored. Goodwill does not sponsor us, but like I don't know anyone on the internet trying to, suggesting more than we do that you should check it out if you haven't had the chance. And you know what? There's a lot of regulars that have come across our channel or that we've met that they're never rude about it, but they don't outright say it, but they kind of consider the bins their magical place and they don't want it overrun. You know what? We've also encountered some bins where like some famous TikTokers have went and then exposed the place as like a hot spot to go. So all of a sudden there's all these extra t-shirt bros.
Yeah. I think our Goodwill bins has kind of suffered from that a little bit lately.
Yeah.
There's been a lot more college kids, high schoolers.
The reason I know that to be true is because I've had a conversation with someone that wanted to blame it on us. And I was like, you're talking about, I was like, listen, I have led plenty of people to go to our bins, plenty, but not hundreds and thousands.
No.
We have 10,000 subs. I know exactly where that puts us in the world, and in the grand scheme of things, it's not that big.
Yeah.
But there are some TikTokers with multi-millions with an M, millions, that go to the bins and make a 15-second video, and then all the college kids from ASU are there. It's not my fault, bro. I don't have 19-year-old college kids looking for vintage clothing to watch our channel, which we have some. Don't get me wrong. There's people watching for Hannah's portion of the content for that kind of thing. But, you know, that's not us. But that is true. Yeah. I've had some conversations with people. They're like, people like you sending people to the bins. Like, you knew.
It is a
I've got people
sword.
going to the bins to buy trash. That's.
Well, I mean, bottom line is, yes, we are trying to sell things and make a living. But what is drawing us to thrifting in general is to reduce waste. So I guess...
And
more people that go there and buy the waste is good. Like it's all good, bro.
Well, that's and to be even more clear, like for me, it's an adventure. Like I'm usually preaching on this channel like the adventure and the niceties of collecting, and Hannah's usually preaching, you know, recycling and reducing waste, and that's our message. Our message isn't, hey, you high schooler, college kids, go to the bins.
Yeah, go find your clothes.
Though you certainly
secondhand.
should. I will say we had one of the loveliest conversations the other day at a Goodwill with a gentleman who told us that because of us and Retro Rick, and I think he said another YouTuber that I wasn't familiar with, his kid literally, and his kid had said this to him, and he wanted to personally thank us. His kid bought his first car, because he got into reselling and doing what us and Rick were doing. And I think at the time I texted Rick, I was like, it's good, this heart, this real sweet guy to us. And I was like, it's really cool. I was like, thank you so much for saying so. And so, you know, I say that to say we have certainly influenced some people to go to the bins. And I certainly want you guys to go if you haven't. I think a lot of people watch us. And now, mind you, I know there's a lot of people watching overseas that don't have this, but I've had plenty of people in Canada and a couple people in the UK say, well, we don't have Goodwill, but we do have this other version of that and this. And so I encourage you in your area to look into it. And do me the favor of trying to see where your local bins is, or see if your St. Vincent de Paul has a bins. They have, we say bins, and let me just make this clear. I should make this clear more often on our videos, but bins is more like not a colloquialism, but it's shorthand for regulars because you shop in the bins, so we just call it bins. But most of the Goodwills are called clearance centers or clearance outlets, or just Goodwill outlets. This is what you would have to search on Google to probably find them, though it does recognize the term bins. But what is the website called? The clearance center
like
locator or something?
GWOutletlocator.com or something like that.
If you Google search Goodwill Outlet Locator, it'll come up. It'll give you a list of the closest ones near you if you use it properly. But even then, I think there's a lot of people that aren't going to have one within a few hours driving distance, but you probably will have something like this. There are Amazon warehouses or overstock warehouses popping up all over the place. I both want you to go find these things because I want you to have the experience. I honestly do. I think it could change you. It could change the way you shop. Like I gave that illustration, that example earlier on in this episode about us kind of being garage sale people and realizing we had a new path. Mm-hmm. That is a real change that it brought to us, but it also, there's so many things I've been enabled to do just by having the resources I can gain from a bins because I would never spend real money on such things, which is a positive for me. But a lot of people have a hotter take on us, and they're like, you're just cheap because the Goodwill bins. People will lob that kind of insult and not realize how much of a compliment it is for someone like me. But I also want to be clear. It's a little bit selfish too, because if any of you guys find a cool place like we're talking about and would like to come back and share in the comments of these videos or on our Discord, which you can find a link to in all of our descriptions, I would love to get any chance I can from you guys to go to be aware of said places. We definitely have some places on our list to some of our more hot spots that we travel, like Vegas, Texas, Arkansas, and then in Kentucky and Missouri where we're from. Those are kind of our hot spots we travel to the most because that's where we go to see family, and of course we're always going to do that and make the most of it. But we have some more ideas of where to go in some of these places because some of you guys have found cool stuff and sent us that way. So I want to be clear. It's one part I want the best for you, but it's also one part selfish because like I'd love to have help in this regard because you know the only other way we're going to find this stuff sometimes is just happening upon them as you do. I mean, we do get to wherever we're traveling and search thrift and see what comes up, but we went to this thrift store on this week's episode called Arc Thrift.
Yeah.
And that was a suggestion from one of you guys, and it turned out to be the best single spot.
It was, for me at least, it was the best single.
Well, it's the only good video game I brought home.
Oh, that's true.
So it was good for me too. Spoilers, I guess. I don't know. But that's it, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. We had fun, and I do appreciate you hanging out with us. But just to reiterate, like back at the beginning of the show, we're just figuring this out. This is definitely something we want to do. I would rather do these things live and have conversations with them, but we're just trying to figure out how to be realistic about how much we want to do. So definitely make sure you're subscribed to this channel as well as our main channel, but make sure you've got the notifications on for this one, because I really think you'll have a great time in the coming weeks if you watch our adventure videos and then you come back to this podcast and listen to us pick it apart a little bit more, et cetera, et cetera. It won't always be that, because like I said, I think for the sake of filler and because we have a lot we want to say, but probably next week we'll talk about something more specific, like our experiences as YouTubers going from weekly to daily. But I don't know. I should never promise anything, because the moment we do, we'll definitely change our minds. But do subscribe to this channel. Check out the links in this video's description. And if nothing else, go back to our main channel and rewatch the thrifting video with all this in mind. I don't know. Just figure it out. But do come back next week. I'm not going to promise you which day, because I haven't figured it out. Someone pointed out to me today, I keep saying come back Monday for our main channel videos, and I've been posting them on Sunday. It's because I'm out of my mind trying to figure out how to do all this, because I had this ability of having to post a video every day of every single week at 3 a.m. And now that I don't have that, I don't know what to do with our videos. Recently, they've been Sunday at 3 a.m. So I think that'll be that, and then maybe these podcasts are going to eventually go live same day or the next day at 3 a.m. or 2 p.m. I don't know. Just hang out, chill out, figure it out, and do drop a comment before you go of any topics you might want us to talk about in the future. Help us brainstorm a little bit. We will probably do some manner of Q&A stuff on this podcast as well. And I don't know if I'll source that from our Discord or just having each episode you guys drop some questions, and then each episode maybe I'll just go back and look at those questions. But if you got anything you want to ask or whatever, drop it below and we'll get to it. But thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. Until the next podcast, live show, whatever it is we do, peace out, guys.